The wind howled through the streets of Riverside like a wounded animal, sending sheets of rain hammering against windows and flooding the gutters. It was the kind of weather that made people grateful for warm homes and locked doors. Marcus Chen wiped the steam from his glasses and glanced at the kitchen clock. 7:35. His daughter, Lily, sat cross-legged on the worn carpet, her tongue poking out in concentration as she colored a picture of their small family. Just the two of them now, holding hands under a rainbow. "Daddy, can we have hot chocolate?" Lily asked, looking up with those brown eyes that never failed to melt his heart. "After dinner, princess," Marcus replied, stirring the pot of vegetable stew on the stove. It wasn't fancy, but he'd learned to make their limited grocery budget stretch across the week. The smell of carrots, potatoes, and herbs filled their modest apartment, creating a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. The building they lived in was old, with pipes that groaned and radiators that clanked through the night. But it was theirs, or at least it would be until the rent went up again. Marcus tried not to think about the eviction notice he'd received last week, tucked away in his desk drawer like a ticking time bomb. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was barely audible over the storm's fury, but Marcus heard it. His hand froze over the pot. Nobody visited them. Nobody came calling on nights like this. "Someone's at the door." Lily jumped up, her coloring forgotten. "Stay there, sweetheart," Marcus said, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Through the peephole, he saw a figure that made him pause. An elderly woman stood in the hallway, absolutely soaked. Water dripped from her white hair, which clung to her face in wet strands. Her expensive-looking jacket was plastered to her frame, and she shivered visibly. But it was her posture that struck Marcus. Straight-backed despite obvious exhaustion, dignified despite her bedraggled appearance. This was someone who wasn't used to asking for help. He opened the door. "I'm terribly sorry to disturb you," the woman began immediately, her refined accent cutting through the storm's roar. "I'm Eleanor. My car broke down about 2 miles from here. I've been walking in this weather trying to find help. My phone died, and She paused, swaying slightly. "I don't suppose you could tell me where the nearest hotel might be?" Marcus looked past her into the storm. The streetlights barely penetrated the sheets of rain. 2 miles? In this weather? At her age? "Ma'am, there's no hotel within 20 miles of Riverside," he said gently. "And even if there was, you shouldn't be out in this storm. Please, come in." Eleanor's eyes widened with surprise. "I couldn't possibly impose. Is the lady cold, Daddy?" Lily appeared beside him, her small face creased with concern. That innocent question decided everything. Marcus stepped aside. "It's not an imposition. We have a couch and you need to get out of those wet clothes. Come in, please." Eleanor hesitated for just a moment before stepping inside. As she crossed the threshold, water dripped onto their welcome mat, forming a small puddle. "Lily, can you get our guests some towels?" Marcus asked. "Yes, Daddy." Lily scampered off with the enthusiasm of a child given an important mission. Marcus led Eleanor to their small living room. She took in the space with observant eyes, the second-hand furniture carefully arranged, the walls decorated with Lily's artwork instead of expensive prints, the bookshelf made from stacked crates that Marcus had painted bright blue on a Saturday afternoon. "Thank you," Eleanor said softly. "I knocked on for other doors before yours. They all either didn't answer or told me to call a tow truck." Marcus felt a flash of anger at their neighbor's callousness, but he pushed it down. "The bathroom is just down the hall. I'll find you something dry to wear." As Eleanor disappeared down the hallway, guided by Lily's chattering about her favorite towel colors, Marcus went to his bedroom. In the back of his closet, he found the box he'd been avoiding, Sarah's clothes. His wife had been gone for 2 years now, taken by cancer that had drained their savings and left him with nothing but memories and medical debt. He pulled out a comfortable sweater and sweatpants, items Sarah had worn on lazy Sundays. The fabric still smelled faintly of her lavender perfume. When Eleanor emerged 15 minutes later, transformed from a dripping stranger into someone who could have been anyone's grandmother, Marcus had set 3 places at their small kitchen table. "I hope you like vegetable stew," he said, ladling generous portions into mismatched bowls. "It's not much, but it smells wonderful," Eleanor interrupted, and the genuine warmth in her voice told him she meant it. They sat down together, and Marcus was struck by how natural it felt. Lily dominated the conversation, as 6-year-olds do, telling Eleanor about her teacher, Miss Rodriguez, and her best friend, Tommy, who could do a backflip on the playground. "And Daddy works at the factory making furniture," Lily continued, taking a large bite of carrot. "He leaves really early in the morning, but he always makes my breakfast first. And he comes to every school show, even when he's super tired." Marcus felt his ears warm with embarrassment, but Eleanor was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "That sounds like a very dedicated father," she said. "Lily is my world," Marcus replied simply. "Everything I do is for her." As they ate, Eleanor asked gentle questions, and Marcus found himself opening up in a way he hadn't in years. He told her about his work at the furniture factory, about the double shifts he pulled to make ends meet, about his constant worry that one unexpected expense would topple their precarious financial stability. Eleanor, in turn, shared her own story. "I lost my daughter, Catherine, 6 months ago," she said quietly, her fingers wrapped around her warm bowl. "She was a doctor, worked in emergency medicine. She always said she wanted to help people who couldn't help themselves. She would have liked you both very much. Today is her birthday," Eleanor continued, her voice cracking slightly. "I was driving to the cemetery where she's buried. It's about 50 miles from here. I know it seems foolish, driving in this weather, but I couldn't bear the thought of not being there on her special day." Lily, with the intuitive compassion that children possess, reached across the table and patted Eleanor's hand. "When I'm sad about Mommy, Daddy says it's okay to cry. He says Mommy would want us to remember the happy times." Eleanor's composure crumbled then, and tears rolled down her weathered cheeks. Marcus passed her a napkin without a word, letting her grief have its space. "Tell us about Catherine," he said gently. So Eleanor did. She painted a picture of a brilliant, compassionate woman who had turned down lucrative positions to work in underfunded community hospitals. She told them about Catherine's habit of bringing home stray cats, about her terrible singing voice that didn't stop her from singing anyway, about Sunday brunches where they'd solve the world's problems over pancakes. "She got her stubbornness from me," Eleanor said with a watery smile, "and her kind heart from her father." The evening deepened, and the storm continued its assault on the windows. But inside the small apartment, something warm and precious was growing. Connection, understanding, the recognition that loneliness comes in many forms and wealth means different things to different people. When Lily started yawning, Marcus announced it was bedtime. To his surprise, Lily turned to Eleanor with hopeful eyes. "Will you read me a story?" she asked. Marcus started to protest. Their guest had been through enough, but Eleanor's face lit up with such joy that he stopped. "I would be honored," Eleanor said. Marcus watched from the doorway as Eleanor settled onto the edge of Lily's narrow bed. The room was tiny, barely fitting the bed, a small dresser, and the bookshelf Marcus had built from scrap wood. But it was filled with love, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, a mobile made from paper butterflies, photographs of happier times. "What would you like to hear?" Eleanor asked. "The Giving Tree," Lily said, pulling her worn copy from the shelf. "It's about how love means giving." Eleanor's breath caught. That was Catherine's favorite too. She read with a voice that grew steadier with each page, and Marcus heard in her words a mother's love that transcended death. When she reached the ending, where the tree gives everything and finds happiness in that giving, Eleanor looked up to find Lily fast asleep, clutching the stuffed rabbit Marcus had won for her at a carnival. In the living room, Marcus was making up the couch with his best sheets. They were old, patched in places, but clean and soft from many washings. "Your daughter is extraordinary," Eleanor said. "She's my reason for everything," Marcus replied. "After Sarah died, I thought I'd drown in grief. But Lily, she needed me. She saved me in ways she'll never understand." "You've done a remarkable job," Eleanor said. "This home, it's filled with so much love. I haven't felt this welcome anywhere in years." They talked late into the night, two lonely souls finding unexpected comfort in each other's company. Marcus learned about Eleanor's love of gardening, her secret talent for playing piano, her fear that Catherine's death had left her with no purpose. Eleanor learned about Marcus's engineering degree that he'd never been able to use because life had gotten in the way, about his dreams of designing furniture instead of just building it, about his terror that he was failing Lily by not being able to give her more. "Having more isn't the same as being more," Eleanor said firmly. "Lily doesn't need expensive things. She needs exactly what you're giving her: presence, love, security. Those are the things money can't buy." Marcus's alarm blared at 4:30 a.m., its harsh beeping pulling him from dreams that had been surprisingly peaceful. He moved through his morning routine quietly: shower, coffee, the mental preparation for another long day at the factory. He found Eleanor already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, watching the pre-dawn light paint the sky pink and gold. "You're up early," Marcus said, surprised. "Old habits," Eleanor replied. "I wanted to thank you properly before you left. What you did for me last night. Taking in a complete stranger, it's rare. Precious. Anyone would have done the same." "No," Eleanor said firmly. "They wouldn't have. I know because 4 other people didn't." She pulled out a business card from her jacket pocket. "I'd like to stay in touch, if that would be all right. Perhaps I could write to Lily? I don't have grandchildren of my own, and she reminds me so much of Catherine at that age." Marcus took the card, noting the elegant script. "She'd love that. And Eleanor? You're welcome to visit any time." After calling for a taxi, Marcus noted her hesitation over the cost, which struck him as odd for someone with her refined bearing. Eleanor hugged Lily goodbye with fierce tenderness. "Thank you for sharing your daddy with me," she told Lily, "and for reminding me what kindness looks like." Then she was gone, driven away by a taxi that seemed too ordinary for someone who carried herself with such quiet dignity. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived addressed to Lily in elegant handwriting. Inside was a beautifully illustrated card showing a garden full of butterflies, and a note that read, "Dear Lily, thank you for being so kind to me when I was lost and scared. I wanted you to see a picture of the garden I'm working on. It reminded me of the butterfly mobile in your room. Your daddy is very lucky to have such a thoughtful daughter. With love, Eleanor." Lily was thrilled, and Marcus found himself smiling at her excitement. He wrote back a simple thank you note, and thus began a correspondence that would change all their lives. Eleanor wrote every week. Her letters were never about money or status, they were about small things. A robin's nest she'd found, a book she thought Lily would enjoy, questions about Marcus's work and Lily's school. She sent photographs sometimes. Her garden in bloom, a sunset over mountains, pictures that told stories of a life well lived. Marcus found himself looking forward to those letters. In Eleanor, he'd found something rare. A genuine friend who asked for nothing but the pleasure of connection. 2 months after that stormy night, Eleanor asked if she might visit. Lily mentioned in her last letter that she has a dance recital coming up. "I'd very much like to attend, if that wouldn't be intrusive." Of course it wouldn't be intrusive. When Eleanor arrived, Lily threw herself into the elderly woman's arms with the unself-conscious affection of a child who'd found a kindred spirit. The recital was held in the school gymnasium, with wobbly sets and costumes that parents had sewn themselves. Lily was a flower in a field of flowers, her face glowing with concentration as she performed her routine. Afterward, they went for pizza, Marcus's treat, even though he'd have to skip lunch for the rest of the week to afford it. Eleanor noticed his careful calculation of costs but said nothing. "I haven't had this much fun in years," Eleanor said as Lily chattered about her performance. "Thank you for including me." Eleanor's visits became a monthly tradition. She always came by train, always dressed simply, and always brought thoughtful gifts. Books for Lily, good coffee for Marcus, things that spoke of attention rather than extravagance. She helped Lily with homework, teaching her tricks for remembering multiplication tables. She listened to Marcus's concerns about work with genuine interest. She stayed for dinner, insisting on helping cook, turning their simple meals into occasions for laughter and storytelling. Lily started calling her Grandma Eleanor naturally, without ceremony. Marcus noticed how Eleanor's face would light up at the title, how she seemed to stand a little taller, smile a little brighter. On her fourth visit, Eleanor arrived during a crisis. The factory had cut Marcus's hours, and he was trying to figure out how to make half his usual paycheck stretch to cover rent, food, and utilities. He sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and a calculator, his head in his hands. "Marcus, what's wrong?" Eleanor asked, her voice gentle but concerned. He looked up, startled. Lily was at a friend's house, leaving him alone with his financial disaster. "I might lose the apartment," he said quietly. "The factory is cutting back, and I'm barely making enough to cover expenses. I've been looking for a second job, but finding something that fits around Lily's schedule." He trailed off helplessly. Eleanor sat down across from him. "May I ask you something personal? What would you do if money wasn't an obstacle? If you could pursue any career, what would it be?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "That's a nice dream, but—" "Humor me," Eleanor insisted. So Marcus told her about his engineering degree, his passion for furniture design, his sketches of pieces that were both beautiful and functional. He showed her drawings he'd made late at night when he couldn't sleep, chairs that adjusted for comfort, tables that expanded for gatherings, storage solutions that maximized small spaces. Eleanor studied the drawings with intense interest. "These are brilliant," she said. "Truly brilliant. Marcus, you have real talent." "Talent doesn't pay bills," he replied. "Sometimes it does," Eleanor said quietly, "if it finds the right opportunity." A week later, Eleanor called and asked if she could visit outside their usual schedule. There was something in her voice that made Marcus agree immediately. She arrived the next evening, and Marcus saw something different in her bearing, a nervousness he'd never seen before. "I need to tell you something," Eleanor said once Lily was in bed. "Something I should have told you months ago, but I was afraid of how it might change things between us." Marcus felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. "Okay." Eleanor pulled out her phone and navigated to a website. She turned the screen toward Marcus. It showed a professional photo of her, polished, powerful, with the same refined features but harder edges. The text read, "Eleanor Hartwick, founder and CEO of Hartwick Industries. Net worth estimated at $4.7 billion. Marcus stared at the screen, then at Eleanor, then back at the screen. The woman in the photo was the same person sitting across from him, but also completely different. "I don't understand," he said slowly. "Eleanor Hartwick," she said. "I built Hartwick Industries from nothing 40 years ago. I'm worth more money than most countries' GDPs. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you wouldn't have let me into your life," Eleanor said simply. "Think about it, Marcus. If a billionaire had knocked on your door that night, would you have invited her in? Would you have shared your food? Let her build a relationship with Lily? Allowed her to become part of your lives?" Marcus was silent because he knew she was right. "I needed what you and Lily gave me," Eleanor continued, her voice cracking. "After Catherine died, I was lost. I had all the money in the world, but I was drowning in loneliness. The people around me only saw my wealth. They wanted things from me, investments, donations, opportunities. No one just wanted me. She gestured around the small apartment. But here, in this home, you saw me as a person. Lily accepted me as her grandmother not because I could give her things, but because I read her stories and remembered to ask about her friends. You became my friend not because of what I could do for you, but because we understood each other's grief. For the first time in years, I felt real, Eleanor said, tears streaming down her face. I mattered because of who I was, not what I had. And I couldn't risk losing that by telling you the truth. Marcus processed this slowly. Every interaction they'd shared replayed in his mind, recontextualized by this new information. Why tell me now? He asked. Because you need help, Eleanor said firmly. Because I love you and Lily too much to watch you struggle when I have the means to change everything. But more than that, because I can't keep lying, even by omission. You deserve the truth. I'm not offering charity, Eleanor said quickly, seeing Marcus's expression. I'm offering family. Real family. I want to invest in your furniture designs. Not as a handout, but as a genuine business opportunity. Your sketches, Marcus, they're exactly what the market needs. Sustainable, beautiful, functional furniture designed for real people, not just the wealthy. She pulled out a folder she'd brought. I had my team look into the viability. The market analysis is solid. With proper funding and marketing, your designs could revolutionize affordable furniture. You'd be the lead designer, build your own team, have creative control. Marcus stared at the papers, his mind reeling. I'm also setting up a trust for Lily, Eleanor continued, for her education, her future. And I'd like to help with immediate expenses, the rent, utilities, whatever you need to stabilize while you transition to the new business. This is too much, Marcus said, his voice hoarse. It's not enough, Eleanor replied. You gave me back my life, Marcus. You and Lily showed me that family isn't just blood. It's choice, commitment, love. You made me feel like I mattered again. You gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. But in return, I'm asking for something, she continued. I'm asking to truly be part of your lives. To be the grandmother Lily has already made me in her heart. To be there for birthdays and graduations and ordinary Tuesdays. To be family, not a benefactor. Marcus stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. Everything Eleanor offered could solve his problems. The furniture business was a real opportunity, not charity. He knew his designs were good, innovative even. The trust for Lily would give her opportunities he could never provide alone. But accepting felt like admitting defeat, like acknowledging that everything he'd worked for wasn't enough. I hear you thinking, Eleanor said softly. I hear your pride warring with practicality. But Marcus, let me ask you something. If your and Lily's situations were reversed, if you had unlimited resources and she was struggling, what would you do? I'd move heaven and earth to help her, Marcus said immediately. Then why won't you let me do the same for you? That night, after Eleanor left, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat in Lily's room, watching her peaceful face in the moonlight. She looked so much like Sarah. The same button nose, the same dark lashes fanned against her cheeks. What would Sarah want him to do? The next morning, Lily noticed his distraction immediately. Daddy, are you mad at Grandma Eleanor? She asked over breakfast. No, sweetheart. Why would you think that? Because you've been sad since she visited, and you keep looking at that folder she gave you. Marcus set down his coffee. Lily, what if I told you that Grandma Eleanor wanted to help us? Like, help Daddy start his own business making the furniture he designs. Lily's eyes widened. Really? The chairs you draw at night? Yes, but accepting her help means things would change. We might move to a bigger apartment. Daddy would have different work. Would that be okay with you? Lily considered this with the seriousness she brought to important matters. Would Grandma Eleanor still be Grandma Eleanor? What do you mean, princess? Would she still read me stories? Would she still come to my dance recitals? Would she still ask about Tommy and Miss Rodriguez? Yes, Marcus said, understanding flooding through him. She'd still be exactly the same person. Then why wouldn't we let her help? Lily asked with simple logic. She's family, Daddy. And Miss Rodriguez says families help each other. Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus thought. That afternoon he called Eleanor. I have conditions, he said when she answered. Name them. The furniture business has to be real. I need to earn my position. No nepotism, no special treatment. I want to succeed or fail based on the quality of my work. Agreed, Eleanor said immediately. Lily doesn't know about the extent of your wealth yet. I want to tell her when she's old enough to understand what it means and what it doesn't mean. That's wise. And Eleanor, Marcus took a deep breath. This doesn't change the fundamental nature of our relationship. You're still the woman who knocked on my door in the storm. You're still Grandma Eleanor. The money, the business, those are just details. What matters is the love we've built as a family. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. Thank you for seeing me, for still seeing me, for letting me be family. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of change, but Eleanor kept her promise. The core of their relationship remained unchanged. Marcus threw himself into developing his furniture line with a passion he'd thought long dead. Eleanor connected him with manufacturers, marketers, and retailers, but she made sure he earned every opportunity. His designs had to stand on their own merit, and they did. The first collection, Home Comfort, featured affordable pieces designed for small spaces and real families. Every item was sustainable, functional, and beautiful. The launch was modest but successful, with several major retailers expressing interest. Eleanor helped them move to a larger apartment. Not a mansion, but a comfortable 3-bedroom place in a good school district. Lily's room had space for a real desk for homework, and Marcus finally had a workshop where he could prototype his designs. But the most important things remained the same. They still had dinner together every night around a kitchen table, bigger than before, but still the heart of their home. Eleanor still visited monthly, still read bedtime stories, still remembered every detail of Lily's life that mattered. For Lily's 7th birthday, they had a small party with her school friends. Eleanor helped bake the cake, a slightly lopsided creation that tasted wonderful despite its appearance. Watching Lily blow out the candles, surrounded by love and laughter, Marcus felt a contentment he'd thought impossible. One evening, months after the revelation, Lily looked up from her homework with a thoughtful expression. "Grandma Eleanor, are you very rich?" she asked. Marcus and Eleanor exchanged glances. They'd agreed to be honest when Lily asked questions. "Yes, sweetheart," Eleanor said gently. "I am. Is that why you were scared to tell us who you were?" Eleanor blinked in surprise at Lily's perceptiveness. "How did you know I was scared?" "Because when people are scared, they hide things. Miss Rodriguez says so. Were you afraid we wouldn't like you if we knew?" "Something like that," Eleanor admitted. Lily considered this seriously. "That's silly. We like you because you're nice and you make good hot chocolate and you always remember to ask if I finished my library book. Rich people can be nice too, you know?" Eleanor laughed, that genuine laugh that had become more common since she'd found this family. "You're absolutely right. Besides," Lily added, returning to her math problems, "Daddy says being rich isn't about money anyway. It's about having people who love you and doing things that matter." Marcus caught Eleanor's eye across the room and saw his own contentment reflected there. 2 years after that stormy night, Eleanor stood in Marcus's new showroom, watching with pride as journalists photographed his latest furniture collection. Thoughtful Design had become one of the fastest-growing furniture brands in the country, known for combining style, sustainability, and affordability. Marcus moved through the crowd with easy confidence, explaining his design philosophy to reporters. He'd grown into his success, but it hadn't changed who he was fundamentally. Still humble, still focused on creating furniture for real people with real lives. Lily, now 8, served as his unofficial assistant, handing out brochures with the seriousness of someone doing very important work. "I'm so proud of you," Eleanor told Marcus during a quiet moment. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," he replied. "You absolutely could have," Eleanor corrected gently. "The talent, the drive, the vision, all of that was yours. I just gave you the opportunity to show it to the world." That evening, after the showroom cleared, the three of them walked to their favorite pizza place, the same chain restaurant they'd gone to after Lily's first dance recital, back when Marcus had to calculate the cost of each slice. "Can we talk about something?" Lily asked as they waited for their order. "Of course, princess," Marcus said. "Some kids at school found out Grandma Eleanor is famous and rich," Lily said. "They said I'm lucky because now I can have whatever I want." Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but Eleanor put a calming hand on his arm. "What did you tell them?" Eleanor asked. "I said I was lucky, but not because of money," Lily replied. "I'm lucky because I have a daddy who works hard and loves me, and a grandma who reads me stories and teaches me about flowers. I said money is nice, but it's not the most important thing." "What do you think is the most important thing?" Eleanor asked softly. Lily thought carefully. "Being there. Daddy's always there. For my school plays and when I'm sick and when I need help with homework. You're always there too, Grandma Eleanor. For my birthday and holidays and just because you want to see us. That's what makes us rich." Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. This child, with her simple wisdom, understood what had taken Eleanor 75 years to learn. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus and Eleanor sat on the balcony of their apartment, looking out at the city lights. "Do you ever think about that night?" Marcus asked. "The storm, the knock on the door?" "Every day," Eleanor replied. "I think about the 7 doors that closed before yours, and I'm grateful for every single rejection because they led me to you." "You know what's strange?" Marcus said. "I spent years feeling like I was failing as a provider, failing to give Lily the life she deserved. But that night, when I opened the door, I was doing the one thing I could do, offering kindness. And somehow, that small act led to everything we have now." "It wasn't small," Eleanor corrected. "Kindness is never small. You saw a stranger in need and you helped without hesitation, without calculation, without expectation of return. That's extraordinary, Marcus. That's who you are at your core." "Who we are," Marcus corrected. "Because you did the same thing. You had every reason to keep your wealth a secret permanently, to maintain the comfortable relationship we'd built. But you risked it all by telling me the truth because you valued honesty over comfort. That's extraordinary too." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found family in the most unexpected way. "Catherine would have loved you both," Eleanor said quietly. "She always believed in the power of simple kindness. She used to say that the world doesn't change through grand gestures. It changes through small acts of compassion multiplied across millions of interactions." "Sarah would have liked you too," Marcus replied. "She always said the measure of a person isn't what they have, but what they're willing to share." 3 years after that fateful storm, Marcus sat in a television studio preparing for an interview about his company's success. The journalist, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Moore, shuffled her notes. "Your story is fascinating," she said. "Single father struggling to make ends meet, befriends a billionaire who helps him launch a furniture empire. It's almost too perfect for Hollywood." "It wasn't quite that simple," Marcus said carefully. "And it wasn't about the money. Not really. But surely the financial support was crucial?" Patricia pressed. "The financial support made things possible," Marcus acknowledged. "But what really changed everything was finding family. Eleanor didn't save me with money. She saved me by caring, by showing up, by giving Lily and me something we'd lost, the sense that we weren't alone in the world." During the interview, Patricia asked the question Marcus had been expecting. Some critics say your success isn't really yours, that you just got lucky meeting the right wealthy person. How do you respond to that? Marcus smiled. I'd say they're missing the point. Yes, Eleanor's investment gave me an opportunity. But the designs were mine. The work was mine. The vision was mine. What Eleanor did was see potential in me that others had overlooked. She didn't hand me success. She gave me a chance to earn it. And the personal relationship? Your daughter calls her Grandma Eleanor? She is Grandma Eleanor, Marcus said firmly. The wealth is incidental. What matters is that she's family. She shows up for school plays and helps with homework and listens to Lily's endless stories about her friends. That's what makes her Lily's grandmother, not money. After the interview aired, Marcus's phone exploded with messages. Some praised his humility. Some accused him of being naive about privilege. But the message that mattered most came from a young single mother in Detroit. I saw your interview. I'm struggling like you were. I don't have a billionaire to help me, but your story reminded me that I need to stay open to connection, to accept help when it's offered, and to remember that my love for my kids is worth more than any bank account. Thank you. Marcus showed the message to Eleanor that evening. That's what I hoped would happen, Eleanor said softly. Not that everyone would find a billionaire benefactor, but that people would remember the real lesson. Kindness matters, connection matters, and wealth without love is just numbers in an account. Eleanor's 78th birthday fell on a crisp autumn day. Lily, now 10, had insisted on planning the entire celebration. She'd made invitations by hand, planned the menu, and decorated their apartment with streamers and balloons. But the real surprise came when guests began arriving. Marcus had helped Lily invite people Eleanor had mentioned over the years, her longtime assistant, a few old friends she'd lost touch with, and several people who'd worked at Hartwick Industries before Eleanor had stepped back from daily operations. This is too much, Eleanor said, overwhelmed by the gathering. It's not enough, Lily replied, echoing words Eleanor had once said to Marcus. You're always doing things for us. Today, we do something for you. The party was simple but perfect. They ate Eleanor's favorite foods, played board games, and told stories. One of Eleanor's old colleagues shared tales of her early days building Hartwick Industries, painting a picture of a brilliant, driven woman who'd revolutionized manufacturing. But you know what I remember most? The colleague, a woman named Janet, said. You never forgot where you came from. You treated the janitorial staff with the same respect as the board members. You always said that character shows in how you treat people who can't do anything for you. Later, after most guests had left, Eleanor sat with Marcus and Lily on their balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. I have something for you both, Eleanor said, pulling out 2 envelopes. Lily, this is yours. Lily opened her envelope to find a letter written in Eleanor's elegant script. My dearest Lily, when I knocked on your door 3 years ago, I was lost in more ways than one. You, with your simple kindness and open heart, helped me find my way home. Asterisk, this envelope contains information about a trust I've established in your name. When you turn 18, you